For many years, whenever I would hear conversations or digest content that was around hustle culture and how hustle culture was really toxic, it would grind at me. And I recently discovered why. Hi, my name is Vanitha Bonnie and I'm a motivational speaker. And today my invitation for you is to rethink your perspective on hustle. For years, when people would talk about hustle culture and how it was bad and toxic, it would absolutely grind at me. And I recently discovered why. You see, for many years, I grew up and I lived in the western suburbs of Victoria. And so I was surrounded by the stories of refugees, asylum seekers, migrants, newly arrived immigrants, folk that were doing it really, really tough. And I also grew up myself in an environment, in a family where, we had no choice but to hustle, but to work hard, but to get that money through the door. My family, my parents did multiple jobs. And I think that's the story of many, many folk today. Not just people that move to Australia or have to move to Australia because of war and conflict, but also for people that grow up here, that grow up in poverty and hardship and challenges. So this idea that hustle culture or, working really hard is toxic and, this aversion that we have to hard work and to working, long hours is actually a very privileged idea, because for many folk, there is no choice. There is no avenue but to work multiple jobs. My dad, for example, I remember when we were living in Altona, he worked in an engineering job, and then at night he worked worked in a taxi. And even my mum, she had to do whatever job she had to do in order for us to have some opportunity to thrive rather than just survive. And it's because of their hustle, their hard work, that I am in the privileged position that I am today, that I have the foundation that I have today. It is because of my parents. And that is a gift that they gave to me. So whenever you think about hustle culture, I want you to think about it from the perspective that it is actually a very privileged ideology. I think about the slums of India. I think about the different parts at the world where the social economic gap is really, really high. Even here in Australia, there are people out there on the streets that are really, really struggling. And so this idea that working hard and this aversion that we have to working hard is actually a very privileged idea. And it's a privilege that I also have myself. I often reflect on, at the end of the day, that when I feel physically exhausted, I can call it quits. And that is because of the privileged place that I am at financially. But that privilege was given to me by my parents, who didn't have that option of at 6:30 at night calling it quits. For them, they had to continue to work hard. They had, 3 mouths to feed. And growing up in the western suburbs of Victoria, there are a lot of families that have more than 3 mouths to feed. I have a lot of friends who have, 5, 8, 10 siblings in their family. I was talking to this young person, and I was actually thinking about them last night when I was sleeping. And, they, at the age of 16, are looking after their 5 siblings full-time whilst sending themselves to school. And their parent is in Darwin earning money and they're sending that money back home to their kids. That's their family situation. So this young 16-year-old person is having to work a part-time job themselves, is raising themselves and their 5 siblings, and is doing that without the help of extended family or even without the help of their parents. And actually their parent is in Darwin earning a wage and a salary in order to support their 6 children. So this idea that hustle culture is toxic and with this aversion or this allergy that we have to hard work is actually a very privileged idea, because for many people, they have no choice but to work hard.